Tool. Probably a band name that you have heard of if you frequent my streams. By the way, twitch.tv/theanimeman, check it out. And if you don't know what a Tool is, you are one. Tool is, in my humble opinion, not only one of the greatest metal bands ever conceived, but it's perhaps one of the greatest musical experiences that any one listener can sit themselves through. And so I figured I would make a Tool album tier list. Tool is a great fucking band. Amazing music, very spiritual music. Music that really, as cliche as this is gonna fucking sound, Tool's music really makes you feel. It really makes you reflect on yourself. You know what I mean? It really, like, especially, Tool is one of those bands where you can enjoy the music without listening to the lyrics at all. But then, if you're feeling a little more adventurous, you can read into Maynard James Keenan, the lead singer's lyrics. And his lyrics are so fucking, like, oh my god. His lyrics are so profound. Like, one of my favorite lyrics of all time, of any song I've ever listened to, comes from a Tool song. And I'll get to that when we get to that album. Yeah, so I guess if you've never listened to Tool, they are basically a metal band. But when I say metal band, I feel that's like generalizing a little too much. They really are kind of just like a genre of their own. You can label them as like psychedelic metal, progressive metal, you know, art metal. It's hard to label them into one genre. And you know, when I say metal music, I don't mean, there's no like real screams or like, you know, growls or anything like that. It's not like your typical metal scream. It's like a yell. It's like a wail. Yeah, so it's Opiate, Undertow, Aenima, Lateralus, 10,000 Days, Fear Inoculum. I guess we'll go in that order. Starting off with Opiate. I have a love-hate relationship with Opiate. It's definitely like, it's pre-Tool Tool. Still a solid album, but like not the Tool that everyone's like come to like know and love. So I would probably put in like either a B or a C tier. I would almost put it in a C tier, just because it's like, it's very rough around the edges. But it's not a horrible album. It's a solid album. Next one is Undertow, their first full-length album. This is a fantastic album. Love it. But I'm probably gonna put Undertow in the A tier, just because it's like so raw and it's so like guttural, and it's like Maynard sounds so like young and fit on this album. Like really fucking good songs on Undertow. Flood is like one of the most underrated Tool songs in my opinion, and one of my favorite screams of any Tool song comes from this album, and that's the final scream on the song Bottom. Is like every time I listen to it, it's like, yeah! You know what I mean? It just makes me like stand up and go, woo! Definitely not as like psychedelic, I would say, as like some of Tool's later albums, but it's just like a really solid progressive metal album. Next up, we have Aenima. Also a really good album. I'm probably gonna have to put it in S tier, just because it's fantastic. Okay, if you strive to play bass and you want to be like a good bass player, please listen to this album or like any album that has Justin Chancellor on it, because Justin Chancellor is one of the most badass fucking bass players in all of metal, in my opinion, because he plays the bass like a guitar, and I don't know how he does it, and I don't know how he like gets that quality, but some songs on here have some of the coolest fucking bass riffs ever. H is also a really good song. H, the I don't mind, like that part is so good. And one of the most like experimental Tool songs ever is Third Eye, and that song is a fucking trip, dude. That song is, whoa, that song is a trip. You've almost named every song? Well, yeah, because it's an S tier album. Every song is fantastic, I'm telling you. And in terms of like the flow of the song as well, because there's a lot of like small like connecting songs or like interludes. There's a few interludes on this song that like kind of connect songs from one another. It kind of gives the album like a flow. And you know, a lot of people when first discovering Tool, especially before they released Fear Inoculum, because before Fear Inoculum, fun fact, before Fear Inoculum, Tool's music was actually unavailable to listen to on things like Apple Music and Spotify and stuff like that, and like streaming platforms. Like the only way you could listen to Tool was from buying the album, and that was intentional. The reason why they didn't want to put it on streaming platforms is because streaming platforms are built in a a way where it's more on like a song by song basis, right? You know, you could like pick a song from one artist, pick a song from another artist, and create like your own playlist, right? And you can pick and choose songs in different orders. But a lot of Tool's albums are made in an album cycle, which means that the best way to experience Tool is to listen to it from the beginning of the album to the end of the album in the order that it was intended. And just like listen to that as one whole package, which, you know, I think is pretty fucking cool. So next one is Lateralus. Lateralus is also fucking incredible. Don't know what to say. I'm just gonna put it in the S tier because it is an S tier. Every song on that album is fucking incredible. The Grudge has one of the greatest screams in all of music. Maynard James Keenan literally holds a scream for like 25 seconds. I'm not even kidding. If you've never listened to The Grudge, please listen to it. He literally holds a single scream for 25 seconds. It's amazing. It's powerful as fuck. When the first time they listen to The Grudge and they get to the scream, so many people think that like,
oh, it must be edited.
But there's literal footage of Maynard James Keenan doing the scream on stage. And then you have songs like The Patient and Lateralus, like the title track, is what happens when 4 mathematicians decide to make a rock. Dude, I could make an entire video just fucking breaking down Lateralus, dude. Like, Lateralus is fucking 5-hit. I mean, the song sounds great to start with, right? The song sounds fucking incredible, but like when you understand all the neat little tricks that they put into that song, like the fact that like the lyrics are like structured in the fucking Fibonacci sequence, and that all equates to the golden ratio, which then reflects back on the lyrics of the song, is just like, that's just like the tip of the iceberg with that song. So yeah, Lateralus, banger album. But let's move on to their next album, 10,000 Days, which I also believe with all my heart is also an S tier. Not a single bad song on this album. Legendary album. Fucking amazing. Jambi has one of the fucking hardest drops of any Tool song. And then you have beautiful, like, heart-wrenching, tear-jerking Wings of Marie and 10,000 Days, which is all about the lead singer's mum. And that's what the album is named after. She was paralyzed in a wheelchair, and she lived paralyzed for like 25 years or something, which roughly equates to 10,000 days, which is why the album and song is called 10,000 Days. And those two songs are all about the lead singer kind of telling the story of his mom. And oh my god, there are a couple of lyrics in those songs that like every time I have to hold back tears, because not just because of how it's written, but also because of how it's performed. Like, oh, just thinking about it's making me sad. But it hits hard, dude. And then we get to the song Right in Two. You know how I was mentioning earlier that like Maynard James Keenan fucking writes poetry? One of my favorite lyrics of any song I've ever listened to comes from Right in Two. And the whole concept of Right in Two is about like how it's told from the perspective of angels looking down at humanity and going, wow, look how pathetic humans are. They're still fighting over the same shit. They're not working together. Look how pathetic they are. Right? It's a really like interesting story about like self-reflecting as humanity, but told from the perspective of something that is not human. But there's this one line that made me go, whoa. and the lyric goes, repugnant is a creature who would squander the ability to lift an eye to heaven, conscious of his fleeting time here. And I was like, how the fuck do you write that? How do you write that? That is one of the coolest fucking lyrics I've heard ever, right? Repugnant is a creature who would squander the ability to lift an eye to heaven, conscious of his fleeting time here. So it basically means like repugnant is a creature who would squander the ability to lift an eye to heaven. A creature is a failure because he misses or doesn't realize his capabilities of lifting an eye to heaven, looking up at a higher being, you know, looking beyond himself, because they know that they don't have a lot of time on Earth. So why would you not try to see beyond yourself, knowing that you won't be on this planet forever? That's all in one line. Like, how do you... There is no way a single human wrote that. It got to the point where I was dead ass like this close to getting that fucking tattooed on me. It's great. It's an incredible song, incredible lyric. And that's just one song out of many fucking banger songs on this album. And I think that's why it's an S tier. But last but not least is the latest Tool album, which was released 13 years later. Now, this album has a lot of contention behind it. It's like when they came back 13 years later, a lot of Tool fans were like, yes, they fucking came back with a banger, let's fucking go. And then there were some Tool fans that came, that heard this album, and they were like, what is this, man? What the fuck is this? This isn't Tool. This is something else. What the fuck? And I get that, because, they really did, like, slow down with this song. They really, like, it's less bangers and more, like, slow burners. But, like, it kind of builds up and, like, turns into this, like, epic thing eventually after all of this build up. But me personally, I think this album's great. I don't know what the fuck people are on about. I love this album. I would put this in an A tier. It is, their most melodic album, but I think it's great. But that's my opinions, I guess, on Tool. Honestly, Opiate, I'd say, is the only one out. They've either been fantastic or fucking fantastic. There's nothing below that. So, I love Tool. Please go listen to these albums, because I do genuinely think they're one of, like, the greatest metal bands ever made. And you can fight me on that, but you know I'm right.